My buddy Steve Forbes are back here, Forbes Media CEO, Gerry Baker, the Wall Street Journal editor at large. Gerry, to that argument on the whole shrinkflation thing, I think it misses that point that companies are in this position, if they want to just pass along the increases, that's one way to do it. Just go ahead and lift it 30%, whatever it is, or try to find a way that makes it a little bit more palatable for people. Well, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I found the
agree.
argument.
I don't really. Somebody at the White House has obviously done a focus group, and they've talked about Snickers, and they thought, hey, yeah, the president should get up and the State of the Union and talk about shrinkflation. I think you're absolutely right. Of course, companies can either raise their costs. They're not raising their costs out of, avarice or evil or something like that. They're raising their prices that they sell these goods for because the prices that the costs that they have to pay themselves, whether it's labor costs, whether it's real estate costs, whether it's costs of imported goods and all the other things, have gone up so much. Have gone up so much in the last 3 years. So and the other thing that I don't really understand about it, Neil, is this focus on this shrinkflation and talking about the number of chips in the bag. It focuses people's attention on his greatest economic vulnerability, which is the fact that prices have gone up.
That's a very good point.
I don't know why people think this is helpful for him to go after companies supposedly for putting up inflation, when everybody understands that inflation has gone up, partly because of the various supply chain pressures, but also because when he first became president, they spent huge amounts of money on this stimulus and have continued to spend more and more money after that. And it just focuses attention on his biggest point of vulnerability. It doesn't seem to make either economic or political sense. To your point, and Steve, he said it far better than I, we wouldn't have shrinkflation if we didn't have inflation.
Oh, that's right. But this goes back a couple of thousand years. You always find a scapegoat when you have inflation. In Roman times, they blamed Christians, good for the lions, but didn't conquer inflation. In the medieval times, it was witches. Now it's greedy corporations. As somebody said, it's like saying an airplane crash is caused by gravity. No, there are other factors involved. So the scapegoating is part of the poisonous atmosphere we have today.
But it must politically work, right? I mean, it seems kind of wanting to me to just blame something, and I get that. But in the end, you're the guy in charge. And I always remember John F. Kennedy after the Bay of Pigs disaster. He took the blame. He could have just as easily said, as a new president, this was something that was concocted under his predecessor. He might have poorly delivered the goods, but the fact of the matter, he said, success has 1,000 authors and failure is an orphan. But it's amazing.
John Kennedy was a leader, and Joe Biden is no John Kennedy in terms of being able to make policies that work and also taking responsibility when things don't go well. And I think this whole thing of envy last night, what you saw last night was part one of the Democratic convention. Normally, presidential campaigns really get underway after Labor Day. Now it starts with the State of the Union. I think even though he gets a bump in the polls, I think it leaves a bad taste in the mouth for most people. What he did was try to show he's cognizant. That's why he loved those interruptions from the audience, the hecklers, show he could respond to that he wasn't totally out of it anymore. And also to get the Democrats in line and say, you got me, I'm feisty, I'm ready to go. So it was more to shore up his Democratic base than to appeal to independents. But his prescription, if they ever followed it, he would be Herbert Hoover too.
I'm looking at that, and if he shored up his base, to Steve's point, Gerry, then you could say this search for an alternative might be put off for a while, if not put off completely. Yeah. So there is that. But he has to get back to this point he's been pushing, this trend is your friend thing, for American people to realize what he says is going on all around them. What do you make of that?
No, I agree. And I think on the shoring up his position, I think that was crucial. His polling numbers are just terrible. We know that.
Yeah.
You referred to some overnight polls. We'll have to see whether this has any effect. I doubt it will have much lasting effect, but his polling numbers are just terrible. He loses to Donald Trump in a head-to-head. His approval rating is the lowest of any president at this stage of a presidency since Jimmy Carter. He loses in all the swing states, literally all of the swing states, I think, except one. So he's in a really bad way, and that's been leading to more and more murmuring among Democrats. Is this lost, and do we have to, find another way? And if Biden doesn't perform well, is this the opportunity to get rid of him? And I think what he did last night, he quieted that murmuring, I'm sure, among them, because as Steve says, he came out, he was shouty and confrontational and populist.
Steve every day.
The other thing I thought was really interesting. The other thing I thought was really interesting was that it was a kind of populist message. I mean, it was the old Joe Biden and the old Democrats. We've heard so much in the last few years about Democrats being obsessed, and there was a bit of this too, the sort of wokery and the kind of modern left. This was, as Steve says, bashing corporations, bashing the rich. promising all kinds of
The rich are the gifts that keep
handouts.
giving, aren't they? Like, and even the corporations are going to pay more taxes. They're going to just say they're evil and all that stuff. And I always think to myself, well, whatever you make of the rich, the top 1% would account for almost half the taxes paid. So I'm just saying, well, okay,
Yeah,
but I get it.
I must say, I found that part particularly does annoy me so much when they say it's time for the rich to pay their share. And as you just pointed out, not only are they paying the share, they're paying a much higher share of total taxes.
And I always try to get
than
out
was the
of
case
what is fair
20 years
share?
ago.
What is fair share?
Right, exactly.
Well, it's 100%.
Yeah.
Everything you own. So where do we go with this now? The president, a lot of people, his base is energized, or at least more than it was. It maybe shows that when the battle is on, he can get up for the battle. But we're still in a long battle here, another 8 months here. So where do you see it going? To you, Gerry, first.
He's in deep trouble. Again, there was a lot of talk this morning on some other networks and some of the, Biden-favorable media outlets, i.e. 95% of media outlets, that this had stopped the bleeding. Biden was back. We're not going to hear any more about Biden's troubles. It doesn't do that. And part of the problem with the age thing, he did fine last night. There were a few flubs, but he did absolutely fine, and he was, animated and, looked alive, which, is important for Joe Biden. But
is that the bar?
That literally was the bar. That's the front page of the New York Post this morning.
Man,
he's
I could
alive.
build a career on that one.
But he's got to keep doing that every single time. He's got to look good every time, and he's not going to. There's going to be more errors and more those terrible moments where he goes around a room looking like a Roomba, and people are it's going to make him look. That's going to be more and more of a problem for him. And the fundamentals are still really bad for him. The inflate the price problem is a problem. Immigration is the big issue. The world is in disarray. So I don't see it getting any better.
As bad as he might look to many people, though, Steve, he is within the margin, against Donald Trump, and certainly he's right about everything Gerry is saying about these polls that show Trump leading, but not by much. And so it is a contest here. So for all his problems, maybe that's a reflection as well on Donald Trump. He can make a contest of it, right?
Yeah, but I think one of the things that are going to be sinking in the months ahead is, despite all the happy talk about the economy, a lot of people, you might say it's a tale of two economies, a lot of people are in desperate shape.
Yeah.
I just saw a number this morning. The amount of interest that households are now paying on non-mortgage debt now matches mortgages.
Wow.
So a lot of people are over their heads, and they don't feel they're getting off the treadmill. They feel the treadmill is winning, and they don't see a real future. And also what Biden did last night was guarantee a lot of business investments going to go on the shelf until businesses know what the rules of the game going to be after November. Yeah. So in that sense, it was counterproductive. And so in terms of, he shored up his base, but I also think that what this also goes to show is the Republicans have to start to put out substantive things like Ronald Reagan did in 1980, what Trump did in 2016, saying, here are the things we're going to do to make your lives actually better. We did it in the past, here's how we're going to do it in the future.
All right, final word, guys. Great job. The Roomba comment is maybe the comment of the day. We're going to take.
I'm not the author of it. Somebody else said it first.
No, you got to own it. You got to own it.